why do these people want to believe these things? Why are they acting that way? You've got serious people taking this idea at face value and investigating it.
All throughout history, however, people have gravitated towards the magical or mythical worldview.
Traditionally, people deal with this by inventing gods, by inventing religions. UFOs are another form of this religion.
But the question isn't just why, it's why now. The UFO phenomenon is not new to this century. It has been a motif in every culture since the dawn of civilization. From countries all over the globe and throughout history, recurring themes of alien visitation and sightings of peculiar flying machines are often described in the art and architecture of ancient cultures. Many believe extraterrestrials played a role in the design and engineering of the Great Pyramids in Egypt. The positioning of the 3 pyramids of Giza are a faithful mimicry of the constellation Orion. Coincidence, or the signature of ancient astronauts? On the other side of the world, carved into a sarcophagus lid from a tomb in Palenque, Mexico, is the controversial Palenque astronaut. Is this a space traveler, semi-reclined in a bucket seat operating levers and controls, or is it simply the Mayan king Pakal plucking fruit from his throne? Perhaps a more convincing example of extraterrestrial influence are the Nazca lines in Peru. Stretching from the foot of the Andes toward the sea are 2,000-year-old pictographs carved into the vast plateaus along the shores of Nazca. The ancient people of Peru drew endless lines and towering pictures reaching lengths of almost a mile long, drawings which they themselves would never see. An elaborate astronomical observatory created to mark the rising and settings of the sun, moon, and stars, or the lost remains of an extraterrestrial airport. During the Middle Ages and for centuries before, the untamed countryside promised magical encounters with strange and wonderful creatures. Fairies, elves, pixies, and angels were common tales among many cultures of this time.
Unusual phenomena in the sky or elsewhere were always interpreted in, religious terms, in terms of angels or devils or superstitions. Little people were leprechauns. You never considered that one of those little people might be a gray visitor from Zeta Reticula. It wasn't in their mindset.
But it is now. Angels in particular bear striking similarities with the description of aliens. Both come from the sky. Both are beings of light, and both have a message to deliver. Most importantly, both require faith and belief. Darker legends involve small demons called incubus and succubus, who visited people during the night for sexual encounters. How far is this from modern accounts of alien abduction and sexual experiments?
Even very educated people truly believe that witches flew on broomsticks and captured children and ate them, things like that. And some people believe that this modern UFO phenomenon and alien abductions in particular are a manifestation of those primal sort of mythical yearnings that we seem to have.
Today, the realm of the bizarre has expanded to the edges of space, and angels have been replaced by aliens.
If you look at the 1890s, Carl Jung said people were talking about aliens then, and he called them technological angels. And that's exactly right, because they function just like angels do. They're messengers, agents of salvation. But they're technological now, and this again is reinforced by technology being so dominant in our lives.
The year 1947 saw the dawn of the modern UFO phenomenon. On June 24, 1947, Kenneth Arnold, a businessman and experienced pilot, was flying east across the Cascade Mountains in Washington when he noticed a chain of 9 boomerang-shaped objects, which he estimated to be racing in speeds in excess of 1,200 miles per hour. When asked later by reporters to describe their flight, Arnold reported, "They flew like a saucer would have if you skipped it across the water." And so the term flying saucer was coined. The incident captured the imagination of a world which seemed to be ready for the idea of visitors from outer space. Within 2 weeks of Arnold's sighting, UFOs had been seen in every state except Georgia and West Virginia. By mid-July 1947, the number of UFO sightings peaked at 850 in the U.S. alone. So widespread were the sightings that the U.S. government was terrified of the implications for overloading the air warning system. The modern UFO phenomenon had begun, and the first Gallup poll on the flying saucer question in August 1947 registered a 90% awareness rate, and that's long before the invention of the video camera.
But today, with so many camcorders, thousands of them, millions of them, in the hands of people in homes across so many nations, we are seeing private individuals getting incredible images of UFOs that they can share with one another. That was never possible in the decades past.
Sightings have remained the fundamental building block of the UFO phenomenon, despite ufologists' and skeptics' agreement that roughly 90% of reported UFOs turn out to be misperceptions of common phenomena like planes, stars, planets, or birds. The other 10%, in the absence of any evidence, remain unexplained.
There is very little, in fact, no compelling evidence for identifying UFOs with alien spacecraft. And of course, that's what popular culture has done. Alien abductions and UFOs have become synonymous with alien spacecraft and alien contacts with human beings.
Not that evidence seems to be an issue. 48% believe UFOs are real, and still another 45% believe aliens have or are visiting Earth today.
I had a personal incident in 1987 with my 2 children of a daylight sighting from my house, which was so clear and direct. It was as clear as a truck on the street. And I didn't know what this craft was, but it was a domed disc that approached our house.
My girlfriend and I were sitting outside having a coffee, when all of a sudden she happened to look up and she said, look what's up there, what is that? And I said, oh my goodness, that's a flying saucer.
This object followed me from just outside of Fort Erie back to almost the Ford plant, and if I slowed down, it slowed down. If I sped up, it sped up.
It was big, quite big. It was flying very low, totally noiseless. The lights were extremely bright.
Had like 3 lights on the side of it. They looked like the bluey color of mercury vapor lights, only even brighter.
What possible reason would an alien spacecraft, for example, traveling hundreds of trillions of kilometers just to get to the Earth from the nearest star system, let alone a star system significantly far away in the galaxy, what reason would it have to come all that way, not requiring lights for navigation, not requiring lights for propulsion or any reason at all of a sudden enter our atmosphere and suddenly flick on banks of red and green and pulsating orange lights and hover over Ottawa for 6 hours?
It used to be consistently. Most people believed in UFOs, but most people thought most other people didn't, and that affected their action.
Back in '61, you didn't mention it any too often because nobody, my own husband didn't even believe me. He didn't. So, but today I can talk about it.
Well, back in those days, you didn't tell too many people anything about it because they used to look at you and think you're a little crazy.
So now people know they can talk. It's safe. It's all right. You don't get laughter.
And grew increasingly sophisticated. Soon sightings were no longer sufficient to support the growing belief in UFOs. In the 50s, groups known as the contactees formed. They took UFO sightings to the next step, claiming not only to have seen UFOs, but actually to have met their occupants.
The contactees back in the 50s, they were going to band together and go off to Venus with beautiful Venusians and save the world by telling everybody to stop their nuclear weapons testing.
It's no wonder the contactees gained a following at a time when many people believed nuclear war with Russia was inevitable. The 60s saw the experiences of the contactees replaced by the chilling accounts of the abductees. In a typical abduction scenario, the abductee, against their will, is led or floated from a car or bed to a spaceship, where they are then subjected to painful examinations. Then the abductee is returned to where they were first taken captive, left with a sense of missing time and only the vaguest memories of what took place.
Was taken on board a craft and found myself on a table, and I was experimented with as in laboratory conditions, and I lost 2 hours of my life until I was regressed 8 months later.
I think that there are psychological phenomena which are playing into the rise in this kind of experience or reported experience. People typically who have been deflected from the power centers of the culture, people who don't have a lot of money or social position, often disproportionate number of women, significantly. Well over 75% of the experiencers and abductee reporters are women.
In the 1970s, people all but stopped reporting sightings of UFOs as abductions had caught their eye. The alleged 1975 abduction of Travis Walton in Arizona captured the world's attention. And by 1987, Whitley Strieber's book, Communion, about the author's own abduction, became an international bestseller. Today in America, 3.7 million men, women, and children claim to have been or continue to be abducted. In the 1970s, people weren't the only victims of alleged abductions. Suddenly, hundreds of mutilated animals, mostly cattle, were found mysteriously dead across the United States from Minnesota to California.
Cattle are found occasionally, perhaps even more than occasionally, on infields by the side of the road with various incisions and organs removed. And some of the lore, the UFO lore, suggests that, in fact, aliens may be removing these parts for who knows what, perhaps genetic experiments, perhaps other things.
To ufologists, this indicated that the mutilators were of unearthly origin. But a report was released by the FBI in 1979 that concluded predators were responsible for all of the mutilations. However, many remained unconvinced.
Well, in fact, if you have a very sympathetic or very gullible law enforcement and also insurance company for that area, it turns out they will pay for so-called cattle mutilations through either satanic cults or through alien abductions. And so I think this idea that since it occurs very strongly along county by county borders, I think that really indicates that it's probably not alien influence.
While reports of abductions and cattle mutilations continued to soar, a new twist in the UFO phenomenon was beginning to emerge. Circular, swirled flat cutouts in various fields of wheat, rye, and barley, crop circles have evolved both in number and complexity. What first began as a few simple circles soon exploded to over 2,000 complex pictograms reported around the world. Unfortunately for the faithful, it was eventually proved that most of these had been hoaxed, as was what has been hailed as the greatest hoax in UFO history, the alien autopsy. Purported to be the autopsy of an alien captured from the Roswell crash, the film sent shockwaves throughout the UFO community and beyond.
The thing about the alien autopsy footage was, even though it's, I think, absurdly obvious that it's fake, it's evidence. And it circulated at these conventions as a kind of talisman, the Holy Grail. Finally, there was proof, and here it was, you could look at it. They desperately longed for exactly that kind of evidence to be produced and to vindicate the beliefs that they have wanted to have for so long.
The impact of the autopsy film, combined with numerous magazines and books, TV programs, and 2 museums devoted to the Roswell incident, meant that the town returned to public attention for the first time since 1947.
It was in an area like this, where 2 different flying saucers crashed in New Mexico, probably late in the evening of July 2nd, 1947. One 75 miles northwest of Roswell, nearer the little town of Corona, the other 160 miles west in the plains of San Augustine. The wreckage was found on the morning of the 3rd of July by the rancher, Mac Brazel's sheep rancher in the area. It was in a huge pasture, 3 3/4 square miles. Lots of strange stuff. Foil-like material that you could fold over several times, more like tin foil than aluminum foil, thicker. And then it would unfold on its own, which is weird. There were some I-beam-like pieces, nothing longer than this. The weight of balsa wood, they weren't balsa wood, but they had the weight of balsa wood, nothing to them, about this high. You couldn't cut them, burn them, break them, and they had strange pastel lavender color symbols along the edge, which didn't mean anything to anybody who ever saw them. What was really peculiar is there was nothing conventional.
Colonel Blanchard, commander of the elite 509th Nuclear Bomb Squadron, instructed press officer Lieutenant Walter Haut to put out an official press release proclaiming the Air Force had for the first time captured a flying disc. On July 8, 1947, the story made headlines everywhere.
Phones were ringing off the hook. I think the first one I picked up was a call from England, and it was from all over the world.
But the excitement was short-lived. Less than 24 hours after Major Jesse Marcel was ordered to remove material from the crash site, Brigadier General Roger Ramey announced that a mistake had been made in identifying the wreckage.
They had phony wreckage from radar reflectors from weather balloons brought in, had the press take pictures of it. Sorry guys, wasn't a flying disc, just an old radar reflector from a weather balloon. That's the end of the story.
The next day, a retraction was issued about the saucer.
It died within a very short period. The next couple of days, it was all gone and all forgotten, basically.
General Ramey took care of it. People believed generals at that time. He had a convincing story. Marcel couldn't say anything, after all. The press were not allowed to handle the junk, and that's what it was that was in Ramey's office. And so it went off neatly, and by the next morning, nothing. It was over, finished, done.
Done for 30 years, until Friedman reopened the case in 1978. His conclusions became the basis for the 1980 book, The Roswell Incident, which argued there was a conspiracy of cosmic proportions.
If taken at face value, most significant event of the last 1,000 years, the recovery of two crashed flying saucers, several alien bodies, proving that the aliens aren't people who don't make mistakes, apparently, proving man is not alone in the universe, proving we're not the most advanced species in the neighborhood, and also proving that a cover-up can be maintained for at least 50 years, because the Air Force still hasn't come clean.
As controversy around the Roswell incident continued to mount, Washington began feeling the pressure to resolve it. In 1994, the first official investigation by the Air Force concluded that the debris recovered was actually the remains of a top-secret balloon designed to detect Soviet nuclear tests.
It turns out that Project Mogul was a very top-secret project because in 1947, the United States was very concerned, as you might imagine, that the Soviet Union would develop nuclear weapons.
But the report did not address the issue of alien bodies that were allegedly found at the site. So, in 1997, the USAF issued their second report, Roswell Case Closed.
Bodies observed in the New Mexico desert were probably test dummies that were carried aloft by U.S. Air Force high-altitude balloons for scientific research.
None of those explanations bear up. And the likelihood that this is extraterrestrial, in my opinion, is right up there close to the 100% level.
I don't know what they saw in 47, but I'm quite sure it probably was Project Mogul. But I think if you find that people talk about things over a period of time, they begin to lose exactly when the date was. And there were lots of dummies dropped during this 30-year period in New Mexico alone.
This latest notion of drop dummies, crash dummies, 6 years after the event is about as absurd as you can get. It's laughable. It's not a serious conspiracy.
No one today really knows what happened during the week of July 2nd, 1947. All that is certain is that the Roswell incident has become the most scrutinized and debated case in UFO history.
The result is that today, people throughout the Western world know what Roswell means. It represents this flying saucer incident, and it is immediately a trigger for talking about the subject of belief in extraterrestrials.
And it's become a word in the language, Roswell, crash flying saucers in New Mexico. One word symbolizes the whole business.
Like Roswell, there is another UFO mystery shrouded in secrecy, and one that is becoming just as legendary. It, too, is based in the increasingly popular belief in government conspiracy. They call it the Ranch, Groom Lake, or Dreamland, but most know it as Area 51. Covering roughly 60 square miles of land, this ultra-secret base is located 140 miles northwest of Las Vegas. It was established in the mid-50s as America's traditional testing ground for top-secret aircraft, from the U-2 to the B-2. But it's not the high-tech aircraft attracting all the attention. Claims that extraterrestrial craft can be sighted above Area 51 have made it one of the hottest UFO destinations in the world. Glenn Campbell, investigator and founder of the Area 51 Research Center, doubts the sightings are of extraterrestrial origin.
The UFO stories at Area 51 started in late 1989 with a man named Bob Lazar, who claimed that he had worked with alien craft at a secret base south of Area 51. Now, this story was better than most. He didn't claim that he had met any aliens. He didn't claim that he knew what the alien agenda was. He just said he saw some craft, he worked with a craft, and that's all he knows. This is when the rush began to come out here. The UFO watchers came out to the nearest place they could get to, which was this lonely highway, to try to look into the base, to try to see those UFOs that Bob Lazar talked about. And because this is such an intense military war games area, people saw what they wanted to see. They saw lights in the sky. They went back and told their friends, and more people came. And this has sort of fed on itself to become a big social phenomenon.
By now, Area 51 is as well known as Roswell itself. Indeed, the secrecy and security around a base said not to exist is only fueling its popularity. It is monitored constantly by an endless chain of surveillance cameras, motion sensors, and patrolling vehicles, and security personnel are authorized to fine and detain anyone careless enough to cross the perimeter.
Well, here we are right at the Area 51 boundary. We've got signs. The orange posts represent the actual line. Up on the hill, we've got a surveillance camera there looking right at us. And on the second hill over there, we've got a white Jeep Cherokee being paranoid about our presence.
The secrecy here is so intense that the military really could keep something this big secret for this period of time.
This is actually physically the boundary to Area 51. Use of deadly force is authorized, it says. And I wouldn't want to, try to call their bluff on that one.
The military always needs secrecy. It wants to keep secrets from potential enemies about what its troop strength is, about what its weaponry is. There could also be other bigger things that the government is covering up. We just don't know. But as long as the secrecy is there, there's going to be the speculation.
Other people claim that saucers went there, and as a matter of fact, I've even heard the pretty far-out story that aliens are working alongside Americans.
One popular rumor has it that 60 stories beneath the desert sand is an intricate labyrinth of tunnels where aliens are working in collaboration with the government.
We've been told that there are 6 different beings over in Area 51, or on the test site. The large and the small nose gray, the orange, the blue, the reptile, and of course the humanoid.
For me, the real issue at Area 51 has become not about aliens, but about government responsibility, about secrecy, whether you can trust your government in a circumstance of total secrecy. Maybe the UFOs are simply a symptom of excessive secrecy by the U.S. government.
People can understand the security. Of course, the government needs a place to test new technologies and new equipment, whatever. But why would they lie about it and say it's not there?
Groom Lake, Nevada. Quite frankly, I have no knowledge or expertise in the matters. I understand there are classified things that go on there, and that's all I have to say about it.
But Chuck Clark is convinced the U.S. and other governments know far more about UFOs than they're admitting.
I've seen glowing objects move, rise slowly, hover for minutes at a time, or appear in midair, streak off in a direction, stop, or reverse direction without a pause.
What people don't understand is that Rachel sits below the world's most intense war games exercise area. This is the place where every hotshot pilot in the free world is going to come to practice in a realistic combat environment. That means there's going to be a lot of flares, a lot of dogfights, a lot of intense aerial action, both at day and in the night. And if you're looking for UFOs, you're going to see UFOs in this activity.
There are craft flying above Area 51 that are unconventional by our understanding of science, but in my opinion, that they don't have to necessarily be extraterrestrial in origin.
If these craft that are flying around here are from Earth, from our technology, they have rewritten the physics books.
You come here and you can see aircraft that are 100 miles away. If you see those aircraft dancing along the horizon, you think you've seen a UFO.
See, that's a ship. I think it's a ship. Because what that is those are like trucks parked around it, and they're probably just running like a diagnostic or something on it.
What I found is that 99% of the stories were false. They're simply people looking at the sky and misinterpreting things. But there remains that 1% of what could be.
Another attractive rumor is that the craft said to be performing erratic aerial acrobatics over Area 51 is actually the flying saucer that crashed at Roswell.
There have been stories that the craft and perhaps the beings that were recovered in the Roswell incident were brought to this facility. But of course that can't be verified.
When Area 51 was created out here in the early 1950s, the purpose for the creating it actually was probably to have a place to play around with the technology that was recovered in Roswell.
Certainly far-out technology is being worked on out there. Whether it's alien, don't know.
There's no indication that anything was ever brought from Roswell to Area 51. Area 51 didn't even exist when the Roswell incident happened. But they're both places of mystery. They're all both places with unresolved questions. And this is what attracts people.
So where can the curious and faithful go to watch UFOs? This mailbox, ironically known as the Black Mailbox, is a legend to Area 51 lore.
It just happens to be located where the best vantage point for lining up a low section in the hills with the airspace above Area 51, you know, it's probably the most photographed mailbox in the world. I expect to come out one day and see people with prayer rugs worshiping the thing. It's like the monolith in 2001.
It's located on Route 375, a 98-mile stretch of blacktop that skirts the entire northern boundary of the Nellis Air Force Base. In 1996, Nevada's Board of Tourism capitalized on Area 51's reputation for saucers and aliens and officially inaugurated Route 375 as the extraterrestrial highway.
This is the ET highway is nothing more than a name on a map. I don't think that you're more likely to see UFOs here than any place else on the planet.
Yet hundreds of UFO enthusiasts continue to make the pilgrimage here every year. On most nights, revolving bands of UFO watchers gather around the mailbox in the hope of seeing experimental aircraft or alien spaceships.
People have heard about this on the news. They've read about it in articles. It's been building up for years. And when people want to take their vacations and they've been every place else, they say, hey, let's go to Area 51 and see the saucers.
And anyone who does make the pilgrimage will inevitably come here. Purchased by Pat and Joe Travis in 1988 and renamed the Little Alien, this remote desert watering hole has become a cash cow for its owners and the center of the galaxy for UFO believers.
There are a lot of people that come here to Rachel from all around the world to see if they can see a craft in the sky or maybe a being or feel the beings that are here.
Area 51, I guess it's something that our country needs, that ufology needs. It's a place for people to displace their wishes. I think if Area 51 went away, if it became open overnight, we'd invent a new one someplace else.
Nothing has fed and sustained the obsession with UFOs more powerfully than the dream machine called Hollywood. The UFO craze of the late 40s made the film industry realize the potential for making movies about the saucers. As these extraterrestrial extravaganzas increased in both number and popularity, they addressed all the questions raised by the UFO phenomenon that science and government couldn't or wouldn't explain.
Governments and science have always dealt with this subject in a very cautious, step-by-step way, never making any leaps, limiting their assumptions, and certainly protecting the domestic tranquility by not overwhelming us with information that might shock or transform our civilization overnight.
Hollywood has never shown such restraint. As long as there were mysteries and unanswered questions, fascination in the UFO phenomenon could be sustained.
These films go right to the heart of something that's philosophical in all of us, in terms of giving us answers to where we fit in the great scheme of things, to how vast life might be in this universe. And in that sense, they satisfy a yearning that is at one level almost a religious yearning, filling a new myth for our times. But on the other hand, they may be giving us a glimpse of something that could very well be real.
Mike Orlando, owner of a movie memorabilia shop in Toronto, understands why people like UFO and alien movies.
Visually, they're spectacular, so they like that. There's a lot of action. They like that. But sometimes they address certain problems that we're having in our own lives, in our own culture.
All vehicles, close in.
As the Cold War set in the 50s, Americans were obsessed with the idea that the USSR would develop its own nuclear weapons, making an invasion possible. It was an obsession Hollywood was only too happy to exploit.
So they invented UFOs and aliens as a way of portraying the communist invasion of the U.S. Only 3 or 4 movies actually dealt with pure life forms on another planet. Most of them were trying to deal with the communist invasion.
Generally, when you introduce the alien theme into a film, you look at their purpose in coming. Is it to help us, to educate us, to elevate us? You found that in the film by Robert Wise, The Day the Earth Stood Still, where a stern warning was delivered. But the purpose was to get man to give up his warfaring ways.
But if you threaten to extend your violence, this Earth of yours will be reduced to a burned-out cinder.
With the Cold War over, it wasn't long before the government became the new focus of public suspicion. Today, a strong belief that authorities are covering up UFOs has caused Hollywood to capitalize on this idea, triggering an avalanche of movies that use the conspiracy plot.
The conspiracy theme keeps cropping up because it's been germane to the UFO issue from the beginning. People have reported sightings. Authorities have denied that they've really seen what their eyes tell them that they've seen.
All right, Beatrice, there was no alien. Flash of light you saw in the sky was not a UFO. Swamp gas from a weather balloon was trapped in a thermal pocket and refracted the light from Venus.
In the film Men in Black, you certainly see that message delivered. People can't know. They can't be told.
Sorry.
Perhaps to an even greater extent than the movies, the media has fueled our fascination with UFOs by exploiting our interest in them.
The interest has always been there in what a scientist has to say about such a controversial topic. What's changed, and changed in spades, is the media perception of public interest.
There's been a massive escalation of the number of films and videos that are dramatizing or bringing documentary information about UFOs to the public. You just see it everywhere. It's been a veritable explosion in the media.
With the explosion of primetime dramas which pander to the paranormal, and in particular UFOs and alien abductions, the people aren't able to really sort out fact from fantasy any longer. They're just so inundated in the popular culture with visions or images of aliens and of alien craft and of alien abductions.
So a script will be written about an abduction experience. The script is filmed and the show is broadcast. Then that show becomes part of the materials which are gathered up by the culture and fed back. So you go to gatherings of abductees, and they're describing experiences which you have seen on television, right? You saw that episode, right? And they're just telling you that they lived it.
And where are you from? Way out there.
But I'm going to have to do this.
Today, the popularity of the UFO phenomenon has grown into a cultural giant. Roswell, a town once held hostage by its own secret, played host to the biggest UFO-inspired gathering in history. Encounters 97, the 50th anniversary of the Roswell incident, was proof of the extent to which aliens have indeed successfully invaded our culture. In July 1997, thousands of enthusiasts, investigators, skeptics, experiencers, and spiritualists have made the pilgrimage to an event that would not have been possible 10 years earlier. The International UFO Museum and Research Center was founded in 1991. It's managed by Dion Crosby, who has closely witnessed the explosion in popularity of the phenomenon in recent years.
Last year, this time at the museum, there were 300 people, our first 300-person day. This year, we are seeing 15, 18, 2,200 people a day.
By week's end, Encounters 97 grossed nearly 50,000 people, doubling the town's population. The subject has never enjoyed so much attention. It even earned a place on the cover of Time magazine. Dion's husband Stan, chairman of Encounters 97, was amazed at the media coverage the event received.
Besides getting the cover of Time magazine, we've had media from all over the world covering this.
At last count, we had over 300 news organizations.
Such places as Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Korea, Japan, South America, Mexico. Oh, we see all types when they come here. You know, you can look around and see the strange and outlandish.
Hi, folks. We is Zarvin and Zertle Bumpus. We's here from Aurora, Texas. We is New Mexico residents, but we only been here for 50 years. 50 years. Be about 50.
And mostly you see families. Very normal, average, everyday Americans, and a lot of people from all over the world.
You've been here since 47? Oh, wow. How do you like it here in Roswell?
We've seen some pretty strange things since we've been here, so we are believers now.
1947 Roswell limited edition.
There are also those within the subculture that have made UFOs their business. Jumping from one UFO convention to the next, merchants will be found selling any and everything that can be spiced up with an alien theme.
I designed a piece of fabric special for the 50th anniversary. It has aliens and spaceships on it.
These are called our alien pops, and they're in 8 out-of-this-world flavors.
I'm from El Paso, Texas, and we came up here to sell burritos, and our most popular burrito is our alien burrito.
This is the world's first Visa card that can alienate anyone.
I'm the president of the UFO Abduction Insurance Company, and we sell a $10 million UFO abduction insurance policy. Normally, to get the benefits of the claim, you have to get a signature of an authorized on-board alien. It can't be someone making grilled cheese sandwiches in a galley.
An unpleasant odor is present. The circumference of
But attraction to UFOs stretches far beyond the conventions, live theater, and T-shirt vendors. For many people, it's serious business.
I'm an alien believer. There's something up there. The government's hiding it, and I'm here to find answers.
You have people who are the true believers, who are going to be confirmed in their beliefs. There are people who are skeptical, but in a sense want to believe, so they're going to try and find evidence for something that they think might be the case.
For many, the evidence is a ledge of rock on rancher Hub Corn's property, 30 miles outside of Roswell. At $15 a head, Hub runs busloads of tours to what some believe is a crash site of a crippled UFO.
I believe that the Corn Ranch, nice place to make money, I guess, having people come visit the supposed crash site. I can't find anything to substantiate his story, and a lot of reasons for thinking it simply isn't true.
But to the ardent believer, this ledge was the impact site of an extraterrestrial craft. For them, the site is a shrine to modern ufology.
The people who are interested in the UFO phenomenon are people who are looking for something. They're looking for some kind of answer to questions that they haven't maybe fully formed to themselves.
Well, a lot of the true believers are here, and I think a lot of people are looking for an answer.
What does my life mean? Is there intelligence in the universe beyond what I see in my local neighborhood?
I think a lot of people in the world think that we're not alone. And I personally... Which is true. I think it's a little arrogant to think that we're the only people in the universe, or the only beings. So, yeah, I think that's part of the fascination.
And so these are the kinds of people who are likely to accept unusual or bizarre kinds of explanations about things being meaningful.
The eyes of the world are on Roswell. We just want to get...
An even more eccentric and extreme strain of the UFO subculture today are those who actually claim that they are extraterrestrials.
We are the Pleiadians from the constellation of Pleiades. I am the parental. This is my son.
I am Ambassador Merlin from the star Alpha Draconis, ambassador to the United States.
We come here with the betterment of all races, not just the human.
The question will be answered in 1999 when I am in the landing party with the flying saucers that land on the extraterrestrial highway and I come out of a flying saucer. Then many, many people will know and believe that I'm an extraterrestrial.
On the dark side of the subculture are those people who pursue their belief in UFOs almost as a religion. They seek spiritual fulfillment by transferring belief in God to belief in UFOs. Unlike traditional forms of religion which offer no proof, belief in UFOs is supported by tangible things like sightings, crop circles, alien abductions, and sometimes approaching comets. The occult group called Heaven's Gate anxiously awaited the arrival of comet Hale-Bopp in 1997. Followers became convinced a UFO traveling inside the comet's tail was awaiting the arrival of their souls.
When the Hale-Bopp comet appeared, it must have seemed to them that the time was too ripe.
In March 1997, the Heaven's Gate cult committed mass suicide. 39 people took their lives in the promise of eternal life aboard a UFO.
One of the reasons that Marshall Hepplewhite was interested to get his believers to make their move at that time was precisely because he was worried about this confirmation. If you let it go too much, or if you key it to a particular calendar event and it doesn't happen, then your whole frame of belief, your whole worldview crumbles.
For some, the thought that the UFO experience might be a new religion is bizarre.
The need to believe is certainly very strong in all of us. The transcendental urging, some might call it, very, very powerful indeed.
People's expectations, their desires for transformation, and their longing for an explanation that makes sense of everything.
UFOs appeal to the desire to believe in something more. They provide us with the hope that someday we'll have the answers to life's most enigmatic questions.
UFOs obviously solve something in the human psyche. They provide some sort of service to humanity, whether or not they be real or not. Humans need UFOs.
A need to belong, a need for comfort, a need for salvation.
The longing to have the world made sense to you. I mean, anybody can relate to that.
They need, I think, at this point in our history, to look outward.
For solace, for transcendental solace, as one might put it.
They want answers, they look for the future. And I think the UFO phenomenon offers them that.
It's the perfect mystery.
If I can throw in a personal note here, my goal is to see that my 9-year-old grandson's generation begins to think of itself in a new way as an earthling, all those people as earthlings, and that we can qualify for membership in the Galactic Federation, perhaps more aptly admission to the cosmic kindergarten. We're obviously not the big shots in the neighborhood.
And if that's the case, are they coming here? That's the question raised by the UFO phenomenon. Officially, they're not coming here, but we're going to continue to wonder until we know for sure.